Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. This is Mr. Yard coming to you from my house. I hope you guys enjoyed watching Spork. If you haven't watched that story yet, stop right now and go and watch the read aloud video first, then come back and watch this. If you watched it already, right on, welcome. We're going to talk a little bit about the plot of Spork. Okay? So, what is the plot? The plot or the events is all the action that happens in a story, right? And as you guys work through in the other assignment with this plot diagram, right? We talk about the rising action, the falling action, the climax, the exposition or the introduction, and the resolution of a story. Okay, so let's work through Spork a little bit and kind of map out what happens in the story. Okay. So we're going to start here. This is where our story begins. This is called the exposition or the introduction of the story, right? And it's where usually the story introduces the characters and the setting, okay? So we know the important characters in the story are Spork. So we'll draw a little Spork here. That was an important character. And we learn that Spork had Mom Spoon and Dad Fork. Those are our characters. And then we also learn a little bit about the setting, which is a kitchen, right? And we learn about some of the other characters who aren't really named, but we have the group of forks and the group of spoons, right? And something really important happens here also in the introduction is we learn about a problem in the story, right? We learned that Spork doesn't feel good being himself. He's kind of feeling like he doesn't have a place. He's not feeling good. So we've got that problem. That problem is introduced here, right? I'll put there, problem, right? So at that point in the story, when we learn about kind of Spork's family and we learn about this problem, as a reader or a listener in the story, we're really interested now. We want to find out what happens next, right? And that's all happening here in the introduction or the exposition, okay? As the action in the story rises, we've got this rising action as things start to happen, we learn what Spork does. So we see that Spork is trying different things to fit in with different groups, right? We see he's putting on different hats. He puts on the bowler hat to try and fit in with the spoons. It doesn't work. He puts on that crown hat to try and fit in with the forks. It doesn't work, right? Excuse me. So we also learn that he's kind of sitting on the sideline and watching the forks kind of do their fork things, watching the spoons doing their spoon things. He's feeling really sad, right? Up towards the climax, there's this talk of this new arrival, this new character in the story is introduced, this messy thing, right? And we learn how all of the other utensils in the kitchen are not able to work with this messy thing, and we're kind of getting more interested. There's lots of kind of chaos happening in the kitchen. This is all rising to a climax, right? And the climax in the story is that part of the story where you kind of hold your breath. It's like the most exciting part, this very tip of the mountain, the most exciting part of the story, right? That might be in another story like where the hero has to fight the villain or something like that. It's the most exciting part of the story, right? And at this point, the most exciting part of the story is when this messy thing, which turns out to be a baby, chooses Spork, right? So we'll put here, baby chooses Spork, right? Which is a big event in the story because finally Spork has been chosen. He was on the sidelines for so long, now he's chosen to be part of the table, okay? So once that happens, then we have this, there's a couple pages there where Spork talks about, or the story talks about how finally Spork feels included, right? He feels like he's finally found a place, right? And that solves the initial problem, right? So this problem is solved in this part of the story, right? That problem he had where he felt like he didn't fit in, when the baby comes and uses him, right, he feels like his problem has been solved. This is the falling action of the story. The story's kind of finishing. And in this case, it's a happy ending in our resolution because his problem was solved, right? And we should note that in some stories, there aren't happy endings, right? So sometimes this part of the story can look different. Sometimes it's a falling action, and it might be like a sadder ending. Like something could happen where the character doesn't find a resolution to their problem. Okay? We're going to talk more about how we can use this framework, how we can use this idea of like the plot, the rising action, the climax, the falling action to both read and write stories. Okay? For now, I would like you to make sure you're understanding this, how plot relates to Spork, and then you guys can try out the quiz. Okay? Take care of yourselves as always, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.